This is a production of the AJ Podcast Network.
The greatest.
Pushing and pulling, I want you, but you won't leave. I hate you, I love you, you love me, yeah, you gotta be. If I'm your cage, leave. But if you stay with me, eventually we'll find happy.
Here we go again, people. Here we go again with another podcast, Passage Home Podcast, starring the Dr. Stanley Russian. And I'm your co-host, Bax a Billion. And while you're listening to us, go ahead and find us on YouTube. And don't forget to download us on Podbean, Apple, iHeart Radio, CastBox, and Google Podcasts. And don't forget to ask Alexa to play the Passage Home Podcast for you on iHeart Radio. And while you're at it, don't forget about my other podcast, I Can Relate to That, with my boy AJ, where we talk about a lot of things that we all can relate to. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google, TuneIn Radio, CastBox, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Stitcher. And don't forget to ask Alexa to play the I Can Relate to That podcast for you as well. And to contact us, you can reach us at passagehomepodcast@gmail.com. If you're interested in sponsoring us, you can reach us at passagehomepodcast@gmail.com. Without no further ado, Dr. Stanley Russian, how you doing today?
By the grace of God, everything is amazing, and I am blessed to stay that way. How about yourself, brother?
I'm doing well, man. I'm just happy to be alive. God kept me here on another day above ground, so I'm blessed. So what do we have going on today?
Welcome to New York, because you've been in the air. You just landed in New York. We have our diaspora here. We have our guest is in Philadelphia. Our engineer is in Florida, and I am in LA. And so we're going to make this work seamlessly. Our guest today is Lady Deedra De Palmer. And we can't read all her titles because it would take up all the show. So a couple of things we're gonna get to in a second, but I just want to ascertain how were things in the green rooms. We put some doggy treats out for your service dog music. Did he avail himself? Because I know he won't eat anything unless you allow him to. Lady D, are you there?
Good evening. I'm Lady Deedra De Palmer, and thank you so much for having me on your show this evening. And music absolutely adores her basket. Thank you.
All right. So, going through all the titles that we have here, which are amazing, we're just going to ask you about one for this show. We're going to ask you. I see that you are a Dane, a knighted Dane. Can you explain to us what that entails? Well, we're just going to ask Lady D for one of her titles tonight. Was a secret. I was going to try to ambush her and promising that she would come back, but she preempted me and told me that she's going to come back on later podcasts. So that blew up my ambush. So on the other podcast, we're going to get into some of her other titles. But for right now, that one of your titles that intrigues me is that of a Dane, and the fact that you were knighted. Can you explain that to us?
Yes, a Dane is So in 2019 in Congress, I was knighted alongside a great deal of courageous individuals that have done multiple things in global affairs.
Wow. And we're about to get into some of that. She and I had a pre-conference, and I think we went for about 3 hours talking about the things, narrowing down to the things that we're going to talk about today. So I am humble. I am grateful to be able to share with you the information that this sister is about to impart.
I'm
And
excited.
yeah, and so one of the first things I wanted to ask her about, because it ties, when it comes to people that I wanted on the show, she exemplifies what this is, because the show is about you. She is about the listener of this show. And the first question I wanted to ask her is about the diaspora and what we can do technology wise in the diaspora, or to enhance Black people going back to their motherland and participating in the diaspora, like we never left, or like we left and we bringing something back that will bless everybody. Um,
First of all, I would like to say to every listener that you won't be returning back to the motherland, because everywhere you are, she is.
mm,
So, should you be given the opportunity to come visit your family, don't walk. I want you to run, because you will embark on one of the most invigorating journeys of your life.
That's deep. That's
that sounds like beyond Marcus Garvey.
yeah.
uh, was is because Marcus Garvey said Africa for the African at home and abroad, and she just put it in a whole new 2001 twist. Wherever you are, the motherland is, and
Mm.
stuff. And when you go back, we just returning back to the root. Something a brother said a long time ago. He said the African American was American fruit, but we all have African root. And so she just tied it all together. The topics we're going to speak on today, and that we settled on, out of the vast amount of things that Lady Deedra is involved in, are agriculture, textiles, and technology. All mind blowing. If you
And
thought Ken Tyler,
don't forget about bottling. Don't forget about bottling. It's a very important subject. Anything good that you want to pass on to someone else, you bottle it up and you share it.
right? Well, we'll get to that. Let's start with textiles. This sister said something to me, and it's like, it burns into my mind, and I start repeating it. She said something, because I've been a technologist, and I into everything that she's doing, but when I talk to her, it seems like, you know she's gone beyond the pale of what I was striving to do. And when she first mentioned to me about mercantile and textiles, she told me, she said, Wells Fargo did not become who they are today on banking. They were first into mercantile and textiles. So I want her to expound on that, what mercantile and textiles are, and how it relates to the African diaspora.
Well,
Lady D.
we all we all know that the precious items that come from God's good soil are vastly spread out throughout the continent. And so we have other people that wish to mine them and take them from her soil and deposit them into the rest of the world. But the truth of the matter is all the soil broke off from that original spot. And so therefore, the things in the soil everywhere is good, but you need to cultivate it. And we're not just talking about the soil, we're talking about the people, because the creator says we all came from clay, right? So when you get down into the mining and the preservation of the textiles during the high period in our West Coast, where the mining was explosive in the gold rush years, Wells Fargo was not a bank that we know it today in all of its greatness. Wells Fargo started as merchants and mercantiles. So they did not they weren't in the mining. They sold the picks and the shovels and the fabrics and all the things inside of what then was a general store.
Excuse me for interrupting. One of those fabrics that they sold were Levi's. And can you expound on what those Levi's were made of and how we've come full circle with the material?
The Levi's that provided the safe covering for the gold rush came from the backs of slaves in the fields picking cotton. We were all met. So there were, at that time, hemp formula was a blend of hemp and cotton, all planted and harvested from us.
Which we're going back into, which ties back into Africa, because right now we are developing hemp cotton blends to put back onto the market, because hemp was wiped off the map in the United States. Hemp fabric.
Absolutely. And now the cultivation of the plant, like tobacco, is being revisited with its sister plant, cannabis. And believe it or not, these plants have other properties than what they just do to our digestive system. They also create a carbon fiber, a version of carbon fiber stronger than carbon fiber. So we have a bunch of people in smartstates.com. Again, that's smartstates.com. Smartstates.com is a collaborative of some of the most advanced technologies in our country. So if you wanted to think of it like Silicon Valley, it would be Silicon Valley East with a whole beehive of engineers.
Wow.
And so absolutely, it is a fun place to play. So in the STEM program that myself and Stanley and a bunch of other collaborators in our nation have developed, and I set it up in the District of Columbia so we could have reciprocity with the rest of the country to start chapters across the country. And believe it or not, one of the backers and supporters was NASCAR. And NASCAR planted seeds with my daughter. And my daughter won an internship from one of our dear friends, and she was implemented into a racing school, and then she was signed as a young ethnic driver to a team called TRG. And so in that, it was really breathtaking in the moment to know that I had generated a child that was competitive in a male sport, a male-dominated sport, should I say, because we have, of course, a lovely driver, Danica, that did very well in multiple forms of racing. And so I'm saying this because what does it have to do with textiles?
Well, let me excuse me, let me cut you off. Let me just reiterate that. You basically, and I'm talking to my audience, you basically saying that through your technology and through the things that you've involved in, that you, as I'm trying to put African Americans into businesses in Africa, you were able to put your own daughter into NASCAR. into a
I
driver's seat, into a
now,
program?
well, let me expand that a little bit.
Okay.
Actually, women's perspective, women's perspective in the motorsport industry.
Mm-hmm.
So we can
Wow.
open up all those young ladies. So, they just won't be rushing to all the sales that we have, that they absolutely command uh, different sectors in racing. And so we put together a story and a television series that absolutely magnifies those achievements and multiple women in the motorsport industry.
And
Hmm.
so, tied in, how does this, my listener that's sitting out there, what does this mean to them?
What this means to you, where do you think rubber comes from? It
Say it
comes from
again?
jungle. Rubber is harvested from the
Right.
rubber industry. Is one of the main staples of the motorsport industry.
Right.
It
So,
comes from your
from our
soil.
home, so
It comes from your
I,
soil. So you should be
right,
able to drive. You should be able to drive in those vehicles. And
right,
currently, what Bubba and Michael Jordan, because Mr. Jordan has worked behind the scenes in NASCAR for many years, because Powerade and Gatorade and Nike, they're all collaboratives he has used to further our triumph in racing. And many of us, he's so multi-talented that we just focus on one thing. But he is
right,
actually taking his platform and carving multiple areas for all people in unity with our continent. And that's the most
right,
important thing, so that they understand that there's engineers and there's all kinds of other drivers and people who are working in the Penske wind tunnels. You should know these people.
right.
You should know
Let,
these
let,
people.
let me make our listener a little bit more aware, because we're talking on levels where they say, well, that's okay for you, you know this, you know that. But how this relates to them is that right now they're giving away land in African countries for returning African Americans. In
Okay, so
Liberia, they have
yes,
rubber trees everywhere.
that's
And
right.
you got brothers out there who trying to hold down a corner to sling some poison and to sport a gold chain, while
Okay, I just
you
want to
could
say this,
not
Stan.
give.
Stan, they are surviving. But the thing about
Right,
it is in the continent,
right,
they would be thriving.
right, there you go. And
They would
so
be thriving,
the
because
thriving.
that's what they're forced to do out of desperation. But
I'm
but
not downing them, but
no,
I'm
I didn't say
just
that you
making them
were.
aware.
I
I'm
just
making
wanted to
them
say,
aware of
I
how
just
they
wanted to
thrive.
that their innovation and their work ethic applied to manufacturing, bottling, and agriculture, where you have a free reign and you are praised for your intellect, you are praised for your brawn. That's
Right.
something that's intangible for us here.
Right. We have PhDs in something that we took it back to Africa. We think we're worthless on a world stage, but we have PhDs and I always said that, and I have a series coming out where we take brothers back to Africa and we tell them, okay, 70% of all the cacao in the world comes between Ghana and Sierra Leone. I say they send out their cacao and they import $3 billion a year in chocolate. What would you do in this situation? And there has never been a brother. I don't care what he's doing out there on the street to hustle. He said, "Man, I wouldn't send nothing out. I would send out the raw finished product as chocolate and make them buy that and up the price, because this is your product. That's
So
ingrained in our DNA, and so as I spoke with Rory and everybody else, that's why black folks go to Africa and they don't survive, they thrive. Because
Doc,
everything we going through over here has programmed us to thrive in Africa. Hustle over here, but thrive in Africa. Just trying to squeeze everything in, lady, lady D. Um,
well,
Speak
some of
about
the things that
bottling.
I just want to cap off before we switch to bottling.
Okay,
Uh,
go ahead.
for some of your listeners, what he does is she marries the sheiks to the geeks, because sometimes geeks speak always so technical that it leaves
Mm.
out the rest of us. So I'm going to go back and ask Dr. Stan. Dr. Stan, please tell our listeners, what is cacao? Because they don't all know. So I want you to
I'm sorry.
explain it to them.
Cacao is well, they say sex sells. Cacao is sort of like an aphrodisiac, but you know it as chocolate.
I heard
And
about that.
cacao is the main ingredient in chocolate. And so your cocoa puff, all the garbage they add to it, but they start out with a raw resource that they take a chocolatier. And here's the funny part about it: when you travel, if you ever start traveling around the world and you bringing back gifts to people and stuff, and you say, I brought you back some chocolate from Sweden. Or if you go to Brussels, they got their special chocolates there. Then you go to Germany, they got the German chocolate. They got the British chocolate, and they're very proud. Got their little seal and stamp. But guess what? Don't None of those countries grow not one um, um, bush that grows cacao. All of that grows in Africa. They were growing in Brazil, but they had a disease in that country that wiped out most of their crops. The
Mhm.
70% of it is there in Africa, and so we have the raw resource. We have what she described. We were born with natural ability to market things and to sell it. Uh, we have that gene, the same gene that they have to hold down a corner. You can hold down a world market. I'm throwing it back to you, Lady
Uh, I think he's been watching the Transformers and he wants you all to unite.
D.
Definitely, but this is like real life wisdom, though. Like, and I'm just sitting here in awe because it's like, just even starting with your daughter driving for NASCAR and you just being such a queen and you know what I'm saying,
No, wait
and
a minute,
able
wait.
to.
I want to correct this. She entered into the position and was signed to
Okay.
drive, and then the
Okay.
recession hit. So she did not have her opportunity to drive, and so what she did was took all that knowledge and put together a collaborative of data on women in the motorsport industry. Now she would like to
That's
return, have
awesome.
the she would like to have the opportunity to return to the track. But the point I was trying to drive is that when Jeff Gordon and Mr. Bigford
Mhm.
took her on that internship, he offered it to multiple children. And it was this ethnic child that started a STEM program at the age of 17 in the District of Columbia in order to set up other people to have job placement, able bodied children and disabled children to have job placement in the motorsport industry. We had the support of Five On, Five Off, Roush Racing, the Hendricks family, and Speed Channel. And a lot of people don't know that. And so it was really sad to see, during Black Lives Matter, um, for Bubba, who we're very proud of, but Randy Moss also had a team in NASCAR. There's a lot of football players that have teams in NASCAR, but I don't believe that enough has been done with the marketing in order to extend where we are in racing.
Okay. Okay.
Right. I don't know if we'll have enough time, but Lady D, when the music starts playing,
Yes.
we're gonna start winding the show down. But
Hmm.
I want to look at something. Last week it was amazing. I actually was on a Zoom call with Arnold Donald, who is the CEO over Carnival Cruise, and then I had on the phone with you, Amir Bey. And then all this ties into you because Amir Bey was getting ready before COVID hit to go on a cruise for children, STEM children, on Carnival Cruises. They got shut down. But at the same time, you were getting ready to do a race around the world
Yes.
just before COVID hit. And
Absolutely.
and yeah, can you close out what was happening with that? Because that tied into your textiles and it ties into technology around the world, which we will get into in our next session. Uh,
Yes. So Methuselah Zio Bradley, our king in Derrimont, absolutely, who is the brain trust for the Veterans Congressional Congress, in which I was commissioned to design the pin for them. So when you see the Veterans Congressional Congress, know that you're looking at the hands of Lady D and her team. So I want you to know that smartstates.com is a hub and a collaborative of multiple technological corporations, which is sort of the Silicon Valley of the East for us, and it's a multiple co-pack of states. So we have access to some of the best technology there, and my colleagues there are lending their hands to place that technology in our textiles for the future that we're all developing now. So Mr. Robert Carullo, which is the head of Smart States in succession with
Wow.
Congress. So we put together with my show. I have a show that was the International Toast of Fashion Week in Times Square for 2019. We did not do 2020 because of the pandemic, but when we come out again, we will be doing the drive around the world. So we were getting a host of countries to start. So it would start in Atlantic City, and then we have a lot of American technologists from Virginia State. So all of these youngsters are absolutely working with us for the various different cars and sensors that we're going to have for drive around the world.
Amazing. That is amazing.
well, wow.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna be logging on to smartstates.com as soon as we get off the podcast.
yeah.
I'm gonna be
We,
I
checking
want
it out.
all of you.
I'm
Listen, I want all of you kids to do that. And I want all of you kids to write something about Lady Deedra De Palmer, and that you all want to sign up for our smartstates.com STEM program, because believe it or not, the future of technology is actually in all of us here in the US. And so I
right.
want to inspire you to all think outside of the box, because we know that even our capital in Washington, our hands have been in some of the greatest American monuments. And I want you all to know out there this evening that you are our greatest American monument.
Exactly. I mean,
mm,
Lady D, being a producer, director, worldwide, closes out just perfectly, but she only scratched on the surface about what I was asking about, but it wouldn't make a difference because we'll get into it a little bit later. But that what she just spoke about was I was involved in it. And that race around the world encompassed let me get the number right. It was 10 countries and about 8 states in the United States that was going to encompass, and it was going to change the lives of Africans in Africa, for instance, just briefly, with that race around the world and the promotion, the way she had it set up, it would have enabled Mauritania, which most people can't find on a map, to be able to start a technology program of repairing and motors for cars from a boat all the way to a jet engine, and allow for them in between all that is a transmission in a car. Do you know that Ghana right now has millions, and all across Africa they have millions of cars which are not running because they don't have technicians to repair a transmission, which means that if you get technicians over there, they can become multimillionaires just by buying cars that need a transmission tune-up. So I'm talking about, and then we not just talking about repairing those cars. We're talking about starting a school that does not only the cars, but does both engines all the way to jet engines and stuff. So we have to come get the sister back, and we want there's so much we have to do about 4 shows just to even get down to it.
Well, back civilian, Dr. Stan, I will be bringing other royals along when you have me back on that journey to introduce the public to them. But I want to tell you, smartstates.com, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Sabre Systems, NASA, all these companies and many more are listed in that COPAC. And each one of these companies have intern programs. And through our STEM, we can absolutely light up a great deal of that. So one of the companies that I'm working with in India is called Khadi. And Khadi was developed by the Gandhis. So I'm quite sure everyone knows who Gandhi is. Well, Gandhi was known for retaking India by homespun, which is a cotton manufacturing. I'll see you guys next time on my next visit. Thank you.
Right. Well, yeah. She got a cue because the black man is singing. And Black Civilian, this is his music that is our cue that we're ending our show. And I just want everybody to know this is is out right now, and it's on his upcoming album to be released called Caged.
Yes,
and thank you so much, Lady D. I don't have to say it, but I'm truly honored.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. It's definitely an honor to have Lady D on the show and all her wisdom and kindness. And also to you, Dr. Stanley, you are amazing. I don't know who you don't know and what you haven't done. But once again, guys, I just want to tell you, if you want to hear the Passage Home podcast with the Lady D on it, find us on YouTube. You can download us on Podbean, Apple, iHeart Radio, CastBox, Google Podcasts, and don't forget to ask Alexa to play the Passage Home podcast. You have a great night, great evening. If you need to reach us, email us passagehomepodcast@gmail.com.